Welcome to episode 3 of our vlogs. My wife and I are continuing our episodes about all of our video game collections. Today is the Sega Genesis collection episode. And her and I are both collectors of that. That was my first system after the Atari 2600. We got a pretty good stack of games. Some pretty choice stuff here. And we're going to talk about them all and go through them. I loved it. It was a great system. It still is. As you saw, it was attached to a Sega CD. Got a little collection of Sega CD over there as well, but we'll do that later. And we're just going to talk about each game and what we liked about them. So let's just go ahead and get started. This is one my wife and I both had. Remember this one? Aladdin?
Oh yeah, definitely.
I always thought the graphics in this were really pretty. And it was just fun. You know, it was challenging, but it wasn't rip your hair out ridiculous. So it was a fun game to play.
Yeah, I like the flying level with the carpet. That was fun.
And yep, original cart there. Moving on down was, I don't remember if you had this or not, but I loved Alien 3. This was rip your hair out difficult, but gosh, I was addicted to this for a while.
I did play it also. Another one of those that I rented quite often.
It was quite the pain, but fun, had a great atmosphere for being a 2D shooter like that, and it was trying to rescue all the
Colonists.
captives, who are going to be, become reproductive organs. All right, and moving on. This was just silly, Beavis and Butthead. It was a terrible graphic game. It was just so goofy, and if you like the show, it was great for a laugh. Really lowbrow stuff. But who cares? Mike Judge, everything he touched was lowbrow, but we love him for it. I think I got the map included on that one. And yeah, we kept a lot of. We always kept our games in good shape. You played this one too, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And I like this better than the Super NES version, as a matter of fact.
I probably played the Super NES version more. I don't really remember. I just know I had more games on that system.
This was mine, Beyond Oasis, one of the best RPGs on the Sega Genesis. I don't care what anyone else says. Beautiful, beautiful graphics for it, even for its time. Kind of a unique mechanic where you can summon these little creatures to help you and stuff. And I always hung on to this, even though this was re-released on the 360 and that Sega Genesis collection. I still hung on to the original. Had no reason to get rid of it. My wife and I are fans of Looney Tunes, and Tiny Toons was no exception. Right, baby?
Oh yeah, Plucky was my favorite.
Yeah. I don't remember I think you were always Buster in this game. Of course, there's this Buster's Hidden Treasures. And tried to find it complete. Got that off eBay pretty cheap, complete in good shape. This game, I loved it and I hated it. This was Chakan, the Forever Man. Notoriously annoying, but had such great atmosphere. It was one of the darker games for the Sega Genesis. And I have beaten it, but it took me many, many, many tries without using any cheats or anything of the kind. Running out of room here. And I was a huge fan of the Strike series. I have all of them for all the systems. Desert Strike, of course, coming out here, play a chopper, overhead shooter as a helicopter. Mission-based stuff. Don't remember if you played those.
I never did.
Okay, the Strike series was great. Check it out. Dinosaurs for Hire. This was kind of a rip-off of Contra, playing as dinosaurs. Yeah, sort of Contra, and it was like based on the comic book series of the same name, Dinosaurs for Hire. I actually have all the comics. Just quirky humor, good stuff. My wife and I are dinosaur lovers, and I had to get this when I saw it.
Definitely. Almost anything dinosaur, we're into it.
Yeah, that's our dinosaur shelf up there. Another cartoon-based game, Jungle Book. Just fun, again, kind of silly. I'm sure you rented it or had it back in the day too, or?
Nope, never got into that one.
Never got into that one. Yeah, you play as Mowgli running around, and side-scrolling platformer type game. You battle a lot of the familiar characters. Here's the next one in the Strike series, Jungle Strike. A little harder. You actually got to play as a stealth fighter in a couple levels on this. All overhead, mission-based shooting. And Okay, the book isn't the right size. It's okay. Don't want it to get hurt. This is the one that got me on the Genesis in the first place, as I mentioned in our introductory video. One of those rip your hair out platformers. But my wife and I have beaten it many times each. We watch each other play and beat it and just laugh along the way.
Definitely fun. Since I'm such a Jurassic Park fan, I definitely had this one too, and the NES version, but that's a story for another time.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that. I'll let her take over that one. I never played the Super NES version. This is Pac-Man. This is one of the best versions I've played, and I even have the download on Xbox Live, but this is still way more fun. I don't know why. I have actually beaten it. There's actually an end to this game. And there's actually a conclusion to this. Really fun. I always hung on to that. One of my favorites. I used to work at Toys R Us, and I was lucky enough that when I worked there, I managed to get this, Phantasy Star 4, a great role-playing game on the Sega Genesis. And this is when they started doing the cardboard boxes. I loved all the hard cases that Sega Genesis used to have. And then they got cheap like Super NES did on their boxes. But regardless, I had a good pick of this. I got this for $7.99 new. And it's worth way more than that now in the condition this one's in. Great RPG, very traditional format, turn-based. Shinobi 3. Who doesn't know this one? This was also re-released on Sonic's Genesis collection on the 360 and PS3, but this is the original. Always hung on to it. Always one of my favorite platformers of all time. And complete. It's one of my higher recommendations as well. And this was my wife's game. She had this with... You got this with your Sega?
Yeah, it came with the Sega.
Right. I got... I didn't get any games with mine. I got ripped off back in the day.
Mine was well, no, mine was the first generation that came out of Genesis, and that's what came with it.
Okay.
So I have the oldest version that has the circle in the center, and it was on the side. It was wider than the newer one that came out after that.
And I got the second version, or slim version, I guess you would call smooth version.
Yeah.
And it didn't have a game with that one. So that's okay. And the next one is Splatterhouse 3. This one's actually kind of rare. It's worth a lot of money, but I'm not parting with this. It's kind of a really dark, bloody beat 'em up. And I don't know how many times I've beaten this. There's multiple endings to it, and great graphics even for its time. It's just one I'm not going to part with. I love this game. Did you ever get to play it too, babe?
Yeah, I think I did.
And moving on. Oh gosh, who doesn't know this one? If we have to explain this, you're just in the wrong fandom. But I was dumb enough. When I was younger, I bought this when it was brand new in the stores. Gosh, it was so expensive. And now we can get it today so cheap. But I don't care. I don't regret it. At the time, it was the hottest thing, and I know you and I have played this together and beaten the crap out of one another often.
Yes, oh definitely. One of my favorites. I was so obsessed with this game. I used to play all the versions of it. The arcade was my favorite, of course, and used to draw the characters. Just a lot of fun.
Alright. And, who were your favorite characters? Who was,
Well, funny enough, the cover characters.
The cover
Guile
characters.
and Bison were my favorite characters.
Yeah, for me it was always Blanca and Ryu. Those were always my favorite. And I was pretty good with Vega, of all things. Speaking of Street Fighter, I love the extra characters they added to this. This was Super Street Fighter 2. Not to be confused with anything on the Super NES. And it was just more the same, just extra characters. And in many ways, I kind of like this one better. But, especially the Bruce Lee ripoff. Yeah, he was my favorite in there. And moving up. Again, we were big fans of Looney Tunes, Sylvester and Tweety, KG Capers. Little damage on there. That's how I got it off eBay. Oh well. Platformer, you're always chasing Tweety around there, trying to get him at the end of every level. All the familiar characters are there. And the music was really good, and it was just a fun game to play. A little tricky at times, but it was fun. And Taz, Escape from Mars. Pretty fun platformer. It was a lot easier than the first one, which was Tasmania.
Yes.
Oh gosh, that one was ridiculous. But this one was more fun, a little more accessible. Had a good time with it. I haven't actually beaten it yet. I am looking forward to it though.
Interesting that the instruction book, they got cheap and made it black and white instead of color like all the other ones that are in color.
I wonder if it was around this time Sega switched to the soft cardboard boxes. Alright, only 2 games left. The next Strike game, this is my favorite Strike game out of all 5 of them. And is Urban Strike. There's actually some levels where you're on foot. That was unique. But everyone added a little something unique, and that was the unique one about this. Also, there's a giant shark in it. There's a shark fin relative to the helicopter size. You think it was a megalodon. It's hilarious. You just have to look and watch gameplay footage to see this. But, there you go again, another black and white, and it's smaller than the thing.
It's in the case, yeah.
This is easily my favorite Strike game. Highly recommended. And lastly, for Sega Genesis cartridge games, is Virtual Bart. Now, this was my wife's game.
Oh yes, I love this so much. I like that there were so many different levels and...
Itchy and Scratchy is my favorite. And I never played it as much as you did. I never got very far in it. So that is the Sega Genesis collection, as you see here on our floor. And always had fun collecting for this system. There's very few left that I would really want to get. I think these pretty much say it all what our tastes are in this system. So thanks for watching this. Any final words maybe about the Sega Genesis? Or
not, it's another fun era to live through.
Yeah, always nostalgic. Thanks for watching, and see you next time when we're going to be talking about Sega CD and maybe Super NES. Thanks.